We'll move on to Hishak, the name of Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan. 30 seconds to introduce.
Minister, my question is in relation to the school completion programmes, and it's to get your views on that, the status of the employment audit and the status of school completion as a community response strategy as outlined in the SRI report.
Deputy O'Sullivan, the ESRI review to which you refer, as you are aware, was conducted in 2015. It recognized the important role that the school completion program plays in working with children at risk dropping out of school. However, the review also highlighted the need for a fit-for-purpose structure with effective governance and employment models to be in place. The report suggested that the governance and employment structures adopted by TUSLA will be key in meeting the future objectives of the program nationally. So following the ESR review, TUSLA commissioned an employment audit. Your question is about to be carried out to examine the issues raised in the review. The employment audit pointed to important issues regarding employment status of the school completion program staff around the country. For example, some 55% of staff had no employment contract or inappropriate employment contracts. So in response to that employment audit, TUSLA's Education Welfare Service undertook a series of initial steps to address these matters. First of all, a specialist firm was contracted to provide human resources and industrial relations advice to support the local management committee, chairpersons, and SCP coordinators. This firm is providing an ongoing 24/7 service via the phone. Secondly, a suite of appropriate contract templates was developed by a specialist human resource firm to be used by local management committees for the various full and part-time positions on school completion programs. Thirdly, governance training for local management committees and SCP coordinators has been provided by the Wheel, which is now complete. And fourthly, Vroega were contracted to conduct a staff learning needs analysis that was followed by a continuous professional development program in response to the training needs identified. So I also want to note that Vroega also provided day-to-day management of the SCP program nationally on behalf of the TUSLA's Educational Welfare Service for a short period. It was allowed TUSLA to reinforce the structure of their Educational Welfare Service by hiring additional resources. The board of TUSLA has also considered a number of other options to address the governance and employment issues, and an expert panel has been put in place to consider those options in detail, and they will be reporting to me in due course.
Thank you very much, Minister. Deputy O'Sullivan, 1 minute.
Thank you for the answer. I've just been contacted by school completion programme coordinators, and they're concerned, obviously, about the audit and not hearing fully from the audit people of what's envisaged. And what is happening is there are rumours about closures and about amalgamations, and of course they're into holiday season now and then coming back at the end of August. I want to acknowledge the great work the school completion programmes do, and in the recession years, the gaps that they filled when there was a loss of language teachers, when there was a loss of visiting and resource teachers for travellers, and also the way in which they supported after-school clubs, business in the community, teen parenting programmes. And I sometimes wonder, when we have these audits from outside agencies, if they really get a sense of the actual work that's going on the ground, and particularly because we're talking about very disadvantaged areas. So I suppose it's just overall a commitment that you are committed to school completion programme as a strategy to address educational disadvantage.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
And I am absolutely committed to the school completion program as a strategy to address ways in which we can support our young people to stay in school, particularly in disadvantaged areas. In relation to the audit, which was conducted a while ago, and what I've tried to describe is a number of steps that have been put in place working with school completion programs on the ground over the last year and a half in order to begin to provide the support that will be required to ensure their effectiveness in moving forward. I think, for example, and the employment issues and contract issues are serious. I appreciate that there are rumours and concerns that are going on. What I'm trying to describe, I think, is that a process has been put in place to begin to support, and is supporting them in relation to on the ground. But particularly what's going on now as well is that there is that an expert panel, as I said, that I did put in place with officials from my department, from the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, the Department of Education and Skills, senior staff by TUSLA, chaired by the CEO of TUSLA, where they're looking at various issues of how to put in place the best model for the school completion program so that we move beyond the employment concerns, the governance concerns, and ensure then that we effectively ensure that our children stay in school as long as possible.
Deputy O'Sullivan.
Progress that has been made in the retention figures and progression to third level, but both you and I represent constituencies where progression to third level is way below the national average. So school completion programmes do play a role in that. When there's any kind of an audit or when there are new things coming in, I do think the people who are working on the ground have to be really, really engaged with and involved at all levels. And this is the school completion programme, the coordinators and the people who are supporting them in the schools. And sometimes they get lost in audits and reports and moving forward. So I'm really asking that whatever, what has emerged now and the plans for going forward, that the school completion coordinators are involved in that process and that they are engaged with at every aspect of that. So that would be my ask from today, that they will have a direct into that process going forward.
My understanding is that they have been. Certainly, in terms of not only, let's say, in terms of the review itself, but perhaps more importantly, subsequent to the review, in terms of the various steps that TUSLA's that put in place and in terms of the various training, engagement that's going on throughout the different programs throughout the country. If it is the case that you have information that is not happening, I would be very keen to be aware of, and you can talk to me or write to me or let me know or email, because I completely agree with you in that regard. And in terms of that they should be the ones who are informing. My understanding is that they have had that opportunity. This group is meeting that will try to review what are the best elements that should be in place in terms of the best model in terms of moving forward. If I have some concerns whatsoever in relation to that, that the people on the ground haven't sufficiently been informed, that I will certainly find other ways to ensure that they are.
Thank you, Minister.